Joining me now on What Comes Next is retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges. He was the commander of NATO Allied Land Command in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea and was later the top general of the U.S. Army in Europe. So, General, you said on 60 Minutes yesterday that you don't think Putin is going to launch a full-scale invasion like what Courtney just outlined for us. Can you explain why and assess how the intel released in recent days conflicts with that, or how you come to that conclusion?
Garrett, thanks. And I have to say, I thought Courtney did a terrific job of laying out some very important aspects of what an attack is going to look like. But, you know, there's so many people, so many of us have been using this phrase, if Russia attacks, or an all-out invasion. I mean, what does that mean? There's no doubt that there's going to be violence, that people are going to get killed, there's going to be destruction of property, and there's going to be continuous violation of international law and disrespect for international law by the Russian Federation. That's going to happen. But is it going to be at a level that our allies are going to have to invoke sanctions, for example? I think that the Kremlin is going to do everything they can to avoid that while still conducting operations inside the Donbass. I do not believe that they have the capacity, and this is where I would disagree with some analysts, that they have the capacity to launch an attack, drive all the way down to Kyiv, and encircle it and somehow capture it. I mean, 150,000 soldiers, that's the big number that we've been hearing. 150,000 is not a lot of troops. Wembley Stadium holds 100,000. Michigan Stadium holds 100,000. So inside a country the size of Ukraine, I just think that they will be absorbed. And that's why I don't think a full-scale attack to overrun even half of the country is feasible.
So if you're right, and maybe there's still time for diplomacy to have some role here, do you think that the possible meetings we've been talking about happening this week, a Blinken-Lavrov meeting, a Biden-Putin meeting, are a good idea? Could those still be meaningful? Or if Putin's going to bite off a chunk of eastern Ukraine and just sort of try to keep it, then what's the point?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and obviously, I hope I'm wrong and that there's no attack. But I think we're past that point. There, of course, you've got Belarus is happening. Also, those troops that were kept there after the exercise, I think they are there more to participate in the Anschluss, the absorption of Belarus into the so-called Union state. I think that's been the long-term objective. While we've all focused on Ukraine. Those troops in Russia are probably there not only to threaten Ukraine, but also to help put Lukashenko into early retirement.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Can you expand on that a little bit? Because the role of Belarus in all this, I think, has been confusing perhaps for some people. I mean, clearly they're allied with Russia in this. They are now hosting all these Russian troops. But are you suggesting that that's not the end game for Russia as involves Belarus?
Yeah. The Kremlin has been working on the creation of something called the Union State for years, actually, and it seemed to pick up speed here in the last several months. I think as one of your other teammates there talked about Belarus and what's been going on, I see Belarus becoming absorbed into Russia, into this Union State. President Putin then becomes head of the Union State, which means he doesn't have to worry about elections for the rest of his life. And he's got his own guy in Minsk who will not be Lukashenko, and then whoever takes over in Moscow. So this is bad news for a variety of reasons. One, that Putin is going to be around for that much longer, but also you're going to end up with thousands of Russian troops and all that comes with it sitting in Belarus, right there threatening what we call the Suwalki Corridor, that little strip of land between Kaliningrad and Belarus that connects our Baltic allies to the rest of Europe. This is not a good outcome, and I think that the president and others, Secretary Blinken, who have done a terrific job so far, I think on the diplomatic front, they would have to really drop the hammer on sanctions, all these things we've been talking about, if there is one more Russian soldier that enters Ukraine.
General, if all of this diplomatic effort has been largely to buy time for Ukraine, just quickly, as someone who commanded land forces in Europe, how would you assess how Ukraine has used the time that has been bought for them ahead of what may or may not be an invasion?
Well, I think that, again, another good question. I think that in Ukraine, there is a strong belief, and I support it, that the Russian plan for Ukraine was always to be like a boa constrictor, to strangle the economy until the economy collapses, leading to the collapse of the government, so that then Russia could find a new person to take over there that would be more sympathetic, might even be willing to make concessions. And so the deployment of the Navy and all these troops around that have basically surrounded Ukraine is like this boa constrictor. They've blocked access to all the ports. And so when I was in Kyiv 3 weeks ago, you could already feel that the economy was under massive pressure. And I think that Ukraine has recognized that that was the main threat. And again, I'm not sure how it's going to turn out.
All right, Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, thank you. I'm sure we'll have you on again as we all learn exactly how it's turning out.